Smooth Productions.
And so after the year was up, what at Guantanamo? What else? Well, basically, what did you do from there?
From when we came home?
Yes.
We came home October 2003. I was pretty happy. I was expecting that I would, we reverted back to just drilling on the weekends. I was expecting that that there would be a change of command and I would get another assignment. Because I'd been in command at that point for 2.5 years, and on active duty, 1 year in command is about all a captain gets. But I was left in command. We got a new battalion commander, and we just started training again because the writing was on the wall. National Guard units were already going overseas. Were already deploying. Our sister battalion was in Afghanistan at that. When we were going to Afghanistan when we got back, and a couple of them had already been killed. So it was take my National Guardsmen, train them hard so that when they are called up and they need those skills that are so important that they haven't had, all the years of active duty to hone, that they can use them and to keep them alive. And as far as I know, all of them have survived several deployments, and I'm pretty happy about that.
And you were directly in charge of their training?
Yes.
And how do you prepare someone in the National Guard for that occasion? Because that's just something that isn't a normal occurrence in American history.
Well, I had a whole year in Cuba to do it. They had training tasks to do every day. I told you about our 12-hour days, 12 days in a row, our schedule, which is pretty brutal. And we'd have a 6-day down cycle, but we would spend a couple of days in the field training. I did an entire, company level live fire exercise where we're firing at targets and I'm maneuvering both of my platoons and all 6 of the squads. Guys are shooting, moving, and communicating and training it to a standard. So they didn't like that at the time because they much rather catch up on sleep or get drunk. But they eventually realized that they needed to know how to do those things. And a lot of them since have come back and said, thank you for making us do that. I hated you at the time, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for you now.
And does that give you, how does that make you feel? Does it give you a sense of pride or?
It, validation. I've actually been very fortunate in the last couple of years where, and here I'll give a good thing on social media. The best thing about Facebook is that so many of my former soldiers have found me and connected with me. And through things like that, I got validation for what I did when I was a cadet at Virginia Tech from the guys under me that I trained. I got validation from my time on active duty with my members of my platoon, and I got validation from the privates that I had the honor to command on their first deployment. So I checked the block. That was everything that I wanted to do at the time, and finding out that I did it right means the world to me.
And now, moving to your time after the military and reflecting back, you've communicated to me some issues that you've had with certain decisions that happened in Kosovo and interactions with some of your commanders and what you had to go through with that. And can you explain some of the frustrations you had with some of the things that you directly had to deal with at ANC?
Hard to do a specific one. There have been a lot. The biggest things that I'd say that bothered me about Kosovo is we invaded. It wasn't a peacekeeping operation, but it was branded as a peacekeeping operation. I mean, there's a campaign streamer on the unit colors, and Kosovo is what makes me eligible to be a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW. It felt like we were getting pushed out of the news cycle. This was a more aggressive operation than what we did in Bosnia, certainly than what we did in Macedonia. And there were casualties. First was a guy who got run over by a car in Greece when we were first mobilizing. He was hit by a car and killed. A couple of engineers had a vehicle rollover and they were crushed. There was a guy in the 82nd who came over as a show of force when the Serbs were being naughty on their side of the border, had a parachute malfunction, burned in, died. And then a guy in my company was electrocuted. The first two were front page on the Stars and Stripes. By the time it got to our guy, he was a little blurb on page 4. It enraged us. And again, at the time, a lot of our frustrations and our vent was going directly to the top of the chain of command, being President Bill Clinton. Felt like that we were being puppets, we would only be in the news if it was to divert attention from the impeachment. That's what we felt.
And as the soldier you mentioned that was electrocuted, is that the situation you spoke to me about where he didn't receive a Purple Heart, or I know was trying to cover up the fact that he was returning home?
Correct. It was because it wasn't considered a true combat zone. It would be considered a hostile fire zone, and somehow that's different. But no combat patches or combat awards were authorized. So I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about them. There was some of the guys in the battalion wrote a group letter to the editor of the Stars and Stripes, making the case for Bill Clinton to authorize it.
And just for clarification, Stars and Stripes is an Army magazine.
It's the military paper.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
It's for all. It's like the daily paper of the military, especially if you're overseas. That's the English language newspaper, but it's stories about us. So we would expect that when a guy gets killed on a deployment, when this was in a time where it would have been a much bigger deal than what happens now, that it would be newsworthy in the Stars and Stripes. And sadly, it was not the case.
And do you want to talk about the interaction you had?
Yeah, by the time Ben was killed, I had finished my time as a platoon leader, and I was in Schweinfurt. They sent me to command the rear detachment. I guess I was an effective leader. That was pretty uncommon on active duty for a lieutenant to be placed in actual command. My job there was to in-process new guys, out-process guys who were rotating out, and guys who were unfit for duty for various different reasons, to decide whether to keep them and rehabilitate them in the Army or kick them out. So I was in Germany when I found out, that he was killed. It was before it was released for the news, so I had to keep it to myself for a couple of days. And when we found out when, his body was coming back to Ramstein, I grabbed every able-bodied soldier I could. We put on our dress uniform, got on the bus, and drove to Ramstein Air Force Base, where I bullied my way onto base, and I bullied my way onto the airstrip. Basically, I'm like, one of my boys is coming home. You're not stopping me. And I made it through all these security levels. So we, I put my guys in formation and waited for the aircraft to come in, and we were going to escort his body to his next flight. There happened to be the assistant division commander of the 1st Infantry Division, a guy named Sanchez, who later was a theater commander in Iraq. He happened to be there with his aide, and he pulls me aside, and he's kind of like, "Why the F are you here, Lieutenant?" And I'm like, my brother is in that plane. I'm here to greet him. And he tells me that I'm drawing too much attention, because I've got 40 guys in dress uniform, Army, on an Air Force base on the airline. And I saluted and smartly said, "With all due respect, sir, go, expletive yourself." I did an about face and went on doing what I was doing. I was never disciplined for that. I got away with that one.
And was there any other interaction with what was Sanchez's rank?
And then he was a major general. He retired, or he was a brigadier general. He retired, 4-star.
And was there any other interaction with him after that?
Yeah, I got put on the brigadier generals have what's called an aide de camp, and basically they carry his bags, they keep his schedule, they make sure he gets places. It's like a personal assistant, 24/7. And brigadier generals had first lieutenants as aides. They sent me to interview with them to be a day. So I go in and I report to him, and he starts interviewing me, and I said, "Sir, I don't want to be your aide, and you don't want me to be your aide." And he said, "You're right." I said, "Thank you, sir," saluted and walked out. That still makes me giggle.
Yeah, that's a very powerful story. And do you want to share Ben's name and rank?
Specialist Ben McGill. He was a squad automatic rifleman in 2nd Platoon Charlie Company 126. He died August 1st, 1999. And every day since then, I think of him.
And we have 5 minutes left for today, but I do want to speak on that just a little bit more. I imagine it's a very powerful feeling you get when just thinking about that, Ben, Specialist Ben McGill. But when you think about that, because of pretty much like it boils down to politics, that he still to this day hasn't been recognized as this. What type of feelings does that draw up in you, and how does that make you feel about, I guess, the way our politicians treat soldiers?
Or the elites in general in this country. Looking back on it, when I hear a politician talk about something with the veterans, the Republicans especially, all they do is talk. But what they vote on is cutting funding to the VA so that the VA becomes less able to care for veterans and then pointing the finger and saying, ha ha, we should privatize this and dismantle the VA. And that is in their platform. The only, most times when I hear politicians say veterans, it makes my skin crawl. There are a couple of exceptions. Bernie Sanders, no one in the history of Congress has done more for veterans benefits than Bernie Sanders. The end. Tulsi Gabbard, people of that ilk. Like, I get it. I get that they get it. And that's reassuring. But we have a long history in this country of treating our veterans very poorly. If you've never heard of it, look up the March of the Bonus Army in 1932 and what happened there.
I do believe because is that the situation where the veterans were promised from World War One bonuses and they were never received, and there was a protest?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I do remember reading about that.
They sent the army in to drive them out. Burned their shanty town to the ground.
And while we do have just a couple more minutes left today, in regards to what we just spoke about, is there anything you want to say in closing about specifically
Sure.
Kosovo and that situation with what happened there?
Not necessarily about that. I think I've talked on that enough today. I would like to remind everyone that there are at least 20 veterans a day who commit suicide. Probably more because not all of us are identifiable as having served. You probably might think that they're young people, but no, the overwhelming demographic are middle-aged. So guys in their 50s mostly. There's the overwhelming number. And also, the nation is facing a heroin epidemic. And a disproportional numbers of veterans are going to be affected by that because they'll give us opiates like candy. And nearly all of us have lived with daily body pains.